guys, I'm back. Today's gonna be a little bit of a different video, and before we get into it, hi again. It's been a while since I've posted a video. Think about like maybe 8 to 10 months, around that time frame. That's how long ago I posted, and I'm finally posting today. You may have seen on my Instagram or somewhere that I was gonna be posting today. I'm posting this after editing it tonight, and it's about 8:20, so I'm kind of cutting it close here. I'm gonna be explaining where I've been, what I've been doing, all the important stuff, yada yada yada, all the boring stuff really in another video. So let's get right into it. Today I'm gonna be talking about how to drive a TCR car correctly, explained by a fucking idiot right here. What I'm going to be explaining is like the dynamics of the car, how it works, just like in a simplified terms. I'm not going to be going into depth like, oh, like the aerodynamic download of the rear wing, any of that bullshit. I'm not explaining. I'm just explaining it simply, and just got a wheel and you want to drive TCR, like this is probably the video for you. There's a bunch of other videos out there that explain how to drive TCR, and they're probably going to be more helpful than this one, but I want to do something different, so I'm going to do it. Okay, here we are in the car. We are in a Hyundai Elantra N TCR. TCR stands for Touring Car Racing. Let's get that out of the way. What's happening? This thing has a turn signal, apparently. I don't know what the fuck that was. But yeah, TCR stands for Touring Car Racing, and TCR, it's in IMSA series where people drive in like hatchback racing cars that are front wheel drive, like I think there's a Cupra, a Hyundai, pretty sure there used to be Volkswagen. I'll list them somewhere. Yeah, it's basically just front wheel drive touring cars. These cars are a lot weirder, I'd say, to drive than your average GT4 or your average GT3. Solely because the power goes to the front wheels, and it makes the car handle so much more different. You can still be fast in these though. So what Max Verstappen said about race cars being front wheel drive isn't entirely the case, because TCR cars can actually be faster than GT4s if driven correctly. So I kind of just wanted to get into that. But yeah, I just found these cars like super duper interesting, solely because they are front wheel drive, but they're so fast. Yeah, I just want to get into that today. So here we are coming out of the pit lane. What I want to get into is the forward wheel drive dynamics, braking and turning, car control, and then practicing habits, so that way you can get better at driving these cars. Driving dynamics of these cars are fairly easy in theory, but they aren't exactly easy to learn in practice, because these cars tend to understeer so much, and how you're supposed to prevent that. What you want to do really is not accelerate too early as you come onto corner entry. I'll show you a case right now. Right, I'm braking and then I accelerate too early, right? That'll cause me to just veer off the track like I just did. If I brake and then turn in and then accelerate directly at the right time while using minimal steering angle as much as I can, it'll actually help me get through the corner quicker than if I were to be on the power way too early. And another reason that the being on the power way too early is bad for these cars is because all of the power is going to the front wheels and instead of the rear wheels, you don't get that same on power rotation that you get in something like a GT4, solely because all of the power is going straight to the front wheels. I know I can't stress saying that enough, but it's just such a big factor in these cars that, like, it's basically like a cardinal sin accelerating too quickly, or too early, I should say, on these cars, solely because the front wheels do literally everything. They go on power, they brake, they steer. You know, so it's just the driving dynamics are a little bit different. You kind of have to be more patient with it than you would, say, a GT4 car. Another part I would like to talk about is how to rotate these cars. So I'm gonna go down this straight real quick. Okay, here we are near turn 1. How to rotate these cars is you want to brake just a little bit early and then trail into it while using minimum steering rotation. I know I took that a little bit slow. You want to trail brake a lot in these cars or else the thing just won't rotate. Now, you may think trail braking is weird with these cars because, oh, aren't the brakes all just towards the front? And no, that's a misconception. In most racing cars, just like TCRs, although most of the braking force is toward the front because these cars are front-wheel drive, you can actually tune the brake bias to be more towards the rear. I like to have it basically all the way at the rear. I have it about like 4 clicks up from the minimum brake bias, just because I love being able to rotate in this thing. That sounded sarcastic, but I'm being serious. But yeah, trail braking while also using minimal steering input as much as you can. Let me say that because I know a lot of turns are different for different circuits, and I'm using Barcelona as an example. My wheel is vibrating and my mic's picking up on it. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just more important than you can ever think, solely because these cars just are so prone to understeering. So you always want to keep that rotation in check, utilizing the braking and not utilizing the steering as much as you would in, like, say, a GT3 or GT4 car or any rear-wheel drive race car, even Miata Cup cars, you know? And then also throttle management. Throttle management I talked about near the beginning of the video, where getting on the power too early can actually cause you to just drive straight, because all of the power is going to the front wheels, causing you a lot of understeer in most cases. But for throttle management, honestly, like, just taking the advice I said at the beginning is more useful than anything else I could say. But another thing that I would also like to note with that is getting on the throttle too harshly, even if you do get your throttle point pitch perfect, is actually really, really bad, because you can start wheel spinning. In TCR cars, I don't know if iRacing is different because I can't afford iRacing, or if like any other simulator is different, or if you have a traction aid on without knowing. But usually front-wheel drive touring cars, or TCR cars as we'll call it, usually don't have traction control, meaning if you go on the throttle just too harshly, it can cause wheel spin, causing you to gain a loss of traction or understeer. And that's not good, because we want to keep as much grip with the tires and the tarmac as much as possible. So now for the second point is braking and turning techniques. I kind of went over this at the beginning of the video with trail braking, but the braking line is super important as well. So I'll go up to turn 1 as an example again. When you brake, you want to brake in a straight line. You don't want to turn in as you brake. You want to brake in a straight line until you get enough speed to turn in, and then slowly but surely, but as much as you can, trail brake into the corner to get maximum rotation, while also not turning the steering wheel too much, like I said at the beginning of the video. Trail braking is extremely important in these cars, and you almost kind of have to do it aggressively in order to get a really good lap time, or else you won't be able to take the corner as fast, especially because these cars are heavily reliant on momentum to gain quick lap times, rather than just like full aerodynamic, you know, pinning it down, getting through the corner, because like the aero is just so crazy. In these cars, the aero isn't that insane. So you want more momentum than like aerodynamic download. So that way you can make it through the corner as fast as possible while also getting a really, really good exit. Exits are your friend in this car, remember that. Another thing I would like to note is setups. Setups, they're a little bit funky in this car, but they're relatively the same when you look at like TCR versus like GT4. But before I start getting into weird setup shit, practicing the car with a default setup while also using brake bias as an exception is generally the best way to get to know the car before you start making changes and stuff. Because if you think about it, if you start making changes before you even try driving the car, you're gonna have no idea how it drives originally, meaning you're just not gonna be able to really figure out the car as easily as you would just driving it stock and then slowly making changes to fit the driving techniques of the car and your driving style. But for general setup changes, depending on the track, you want to mainly, like, first off rip, change your tire pressure. I can't stress this enough. Because most of the work is going towards the front wheels, you want to try changing your tire pressure more in favor of the front wheels. Because although the rear wheels do help you in most of the cases for the corners, really adjusting the front wheels to not overheat is just absolutely perfect for these cars, depending on what track you're on. Because the front wheels do tend to overheat a metric shit ton because they're just doing everything. For, like, tuning for rotation, although brake bias is really important, adjusting the front and rear camber to be pushed out more towards turn-ins is still as useful as change it in, like, a GT4 or GT3 car. You may think, like, wouldn't camber be different for the front wheel drive terrain? Well, yes, it's a little bit different. I would still keep the same rule of thumb you would for any rear wheel drive race car when it comes to, like, toe and camber. It's because if you do use the throttle and braking techniques correctly, the camber and toe out will still help you corner better. For my final point, or the fourth point, is practicing habits. Now, practicing habits, it's generally the same for when you drive any other race car. You know what I mean? First of all, get into a practice session and just drive the car as much as you can. It'll help you understand the dynamics of the car, how the car works, how you're supposed to drive the car, what kind of driving style you need or you want personally to drive the car. And it also just generally helps for racing techniques as well, because you could utilize things like AI and stuff like that on track to help you learn how to race against other drivers without, like, the worry about, like, driver ranking or, like, safety ranking or whatever. Another thing that you should utilize is looking ahead. Now, I'll say this for any car, but in TCR cars, it's especially important because you really desperately need to know when your throttle and braking points are, because of all the things I mentioned earlier, like braking points, like braking early, when to throttle, how harshly you should throttle, or how aggressively you should throttle in or throttle out. And remember, these are all based off momentum. So if you just look a little too close on the track and not look ahead, you could easily ruin your race lap solely because you weren't paying attention to what's ahead of you and instead just looked a little bit too down and were looking at the apex more than you were looking at where your brake point was ahead. So yeah, with that being said, I'm gonna attempt to apply everything I just said and try to run a hot lap. My fastest time around Barcelona in a TCR was about 1 minute 50.124. So I'm gonna try and use everything I said to just try and get a hot lap. Got a 151.4, roughly. It's about like 1.3 seconds slower than what I originally did, but I also haven't been on the sim in a while. But that's still a decently paced lap. It's definitely not like leaderboard level a lap, but it's definitely there for pace. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the helpful tips for driving these TCR cars, especially if you drive the LFM TCR Cup if you're a beginner driver. Yeah, just in general, I hope you guys enjoyed, because these cars are beautiful machines, and just because they're front wheel drive doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad car or it's slow. Because these things can be and are faster than GT4 cars, which is honestly surprising. But yeah, these cars are just amazing, and I hope you have fun with the general tips I gave you, and hopefully you can, whoa. And hopefully you can, enjoy yourself driving these cars, because they are meant to be fun racing cars to drive. So yeah, I guess I will see you guys another time. I plan on doing a, what it's like driving on Laguna Seca part 2, because I really enjoyed making that first video, and I'll see you this weekend. Have a good one.